Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Today's crime report is going to be a twofer. The first one is one that I've been wanting to tell you about for at least the last few weeks. China Grove, North Carolina, Wednesday, February 15th. Around midday, a woman was approached by a man at a QT gas station in Cannibal, North Carolina. He must have seemed rather charming, at least initially, because the two of them exchanged phone numbers. The man didn't wait long at all, though, to make a move on her. Later, the exact same day, the man offered to pick the woman up and take her back to his home in China Grove. But he didn't have romance on his mind. When he got the woman to his house, he locked the door, then picked up a steak knife in the kitchen and tried to stab the woman in the chest. Amazingly, she managed to get the knife away from the assailant, but not before she had sustained serious wounds to her hands. The woman then fled the house and flagged down a passing motorist. This driver was also a woman, and when the victim got in her vehicle, they saw a car pull up behind them, and that it had come from the direction of the assailant's house. The victim reportedly said, "I think that's him." The two women went to a Circle K gas station where they saw police in the parking lot. They reported the incident, and the cops went to the scene of the crime. By the way, the street that this guy lived on is called Peaceful Lane. You know, why is it always in the suburbs or these rural areas they got these streets and roads with names like Peaceful, and they call their little enclaves Gentle Valley, but you can bet ain't nothing peaceful going on there and the people are anything but gentle. Show me a little rural or suburban area called Peaceful whatever, and you can bet there's some brutality going down. The assailant was identified as 24-year-old Hunter Chase Nance. Look at that name, Hunter Chase. Well, his parents certainly gave him the right name. He was out there hunting and chasing all right. He told police that he chose the woman at random. He also said he wanted to kill for the thrill. Those were his words, kill for the thrill. This is exactly what happens when a society decides that it's going to make certain behaviors permissible, at least for certain folks, and then eventually they decide that this is just their idea of fun. Why not indulge? When society never tells you that you're wrong, when society never holds you to account, and when it bends over backwards to make excuses for behavior, well, inevitably you're going to have some folks who decide, hey, clearly the rules aren't for me. And you can't blame them because there's not much to say that the rules ever are. And while he was being booked at the jail, he told investigators that he wanted to stab the woman 25 times and drag her body to the roadway for passing vehicles to see. That's when he made the most shocking admission of all. He told them that he planned to cut her fingers off before killing her in order to eat them in front of her to scare her. Now, that part is kind of interesting to me for a lot of reasons, one of which being that several years back there was a movie called Sin City. In it, a woman is kidnapped by a psychopath played by Elijah Wood, and she's thrown into a dungeon. In one scene, she reveals that this psycho is kidnapping women and killing them, but also that he's a cannibal.
He eats people.
And that he cut off her hand, then ate her fingers and made her watch while he did it.
Son of a bitch. Kept smiling that damn smile. Made me watch him. Suck the meat off my fingers. He made me watch. He made me watch!
And because these rural reprobates and suburban psychos never have just one victim in mind, police say that this would-be killer also had a hit list of other people that he planned to kill after he was through with his allegedly first victim. I say allegedly because we don't actually know that this was his first victim. This is probably just the first one who got away. But what does this tell you? This guy had a whole list of people that he wanted to go after. But then again, they always do. See, in a society that glamorizes depraved behavior, as long as it comes from certain sectors and puts out movies and TV shows that make these demented monsters out to be some sort of dark geniuses, from Hannibal Lecter to the Zodiac Killer, there are people in this society who actually see this as glamorizing them personally. And then, as the late great Paul Mooney said, these blonde women wonder why the serial killer always chases after them. The white media glamorizes these degenerates, but then again, as I've long explained to you, the people who own and control the white media, these executives and moguls, they actually identify with these satanic killers. For them, Freddy Krueger and Hannibal Lecter and all of these slasher killers are some sort of sick wish fulfillment for the men who run these studios and networks. They get to live vicariously through these on-screen psychopaths. That's why they love putting this stuff out there. They don't mind if the killer is eventually killed at the end of the movie. They got what they wanted by seeing the psycho get to run around murdering and cannibalizing people. To them, that's the reason to make these movies and TV shows. But to the trash like this Nance character, they see it as affirmation of their sick behavior. And if they're captured or killed, so what? To them, they're going to either be famous or go out in the proverbial blaze of glory. Either way, in their minds, they win. Now, currently, this Nance character is facing charges of false imprisonment, assault with a deadly weapon, and first-degree kidnapping. He was initially given a $600,000 bond. That was eventually raised to $1.2 million. And that's amazing in and of itself because most criminals with genetic immunity from law get released on their own recognizance immediately. He's due in court today, March 8th, for his probable cause hearing. Since he didn't kill his victim and her wounds are basically defensive stab wounds, he'll get to make a plea of insanity. The judge will predictably have him sent to some mental facility where he'll be declared insane or at the least as having some sort of mental disorder. The prosecutors will let him have some sort of sweetheart plea deal and the judge, of course, will give him a slap on the wrist sentence. And then a few years from now, we'll hear about some horrifying incident where this creep pops up in another tiny town somewhere and gets arrested or killed after it's discovered that he's had a dozen bodies under his house or various women's body parts in his refrigerator. They let these creeps remain on the loose because for the dominant society, the overarching rule is that there can be absolutely no restraints on their movements or deeds. This is how white supremacy bestows tangible benefits to those classified as white, by allowing them to have basic freedom of movement while constantly attacking black people for anything that we say, anything we do, or anywhere that we go, or for absolutely nothing at all. Now, this incident happened in a place called China Grove, and as you would expect, this is one of those small towns, population 4,400. Seems these weirdos and psychos always happen to be from these little hamlets. And this is why they prefer to be out there, because nobody can see you committing cannibalism and incest and bestiality. This is the putrid underbelly of American society, but the white media doesn't talk about it, which is why the black media does. And now the second file for today's crime report. But before we get to that, we'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power Tools. Because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. Clayton County, Georgia, Friday, July 30th, 2021, 2:30 a.m. Jonesboro is a small town of about 4,500 people. That's already scary. It's just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. 2.5 years ago, in the very early morning hours of July 30th, some typical behavior happened there. Police responded to a report of gunshots having been fired at a convenience store on the 6,000 block of Tara Boulevard. When the police arrived, they immediately got another report, this time of gunshots at nearby Mount Zion Road. When officers arrived at the location of the second attack, they saw a 2016 Ford Fusion weaving in the road. The police pulled the car over and saw an open container and a bag of ammunition inside the car, including spent shell casings. Naturally, they arrested the driver alive because he wasn't black. No word on whether they took him to Burger King, but it's even odds that they did. The race terrorist was identified as 47-year-old Larry Edward Foxworth. During his arrest, he said, "This is a hate crime and this is a targeted hit," according to police. He told authorities he wanted to kill black and Arab people because he believed that's who was inside those stores and he hoped that he had killed people. The state prosecutors in Georgia were still not sure whether to charge this guy with a hate crime after this admission, so they didn't. Now, let's get one thing straight. The white media keeps listing his targets as Arab and black. That's what they put in their headlines about this crime. They mention Arab first. This race terrorist lives just outside of Atlanta. He didn't go to Dearborn, Michigan or New York. He went to a place close to Atlanta. That's overwhelmingly black, family. Now, of all the white media headlines, only one that I found actually called this creep what he is, a white supremacist. Apparently the rest of the white media just couldn't figure out that detail. The Aryan propagandists didn't even call him that either, but then again, that's just professional courtesy on their part. According to white media reports, the race terrorist Foxworth also said, "I can give you a name and we can make this disappear." Now, why would he say something like this? I can just give you a name and we can make this disappear. He said it because he knows how racist the police and prosecutors are, not just in Georgia, but nationwide. Keep in mind, this incident happened only a year after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, which also took place in Georgia. So these racists are fully aware that the police, prosecutors, and judges are on their side. They're on the side of white supremacy. And he was right. The Georgia authorities only charged this race terrorist with making terroristic threats, obstructing law enforcement officers, open container, and improper lane change. I'm not making that up. That's actually what they charged him with. That's it. No charges for trying to kill people, not even a gun charge. Now keep in mind, this is in Georgia where they got some of the strictest laws in America. And the easiest law is to put somebody behind bars, but you see the prosecutors are going out of their way to show, as far as they're concerned, they're not trying to put anything serious on this guy. They did this as a message. That's what it is. This is why the public has to understand that when the police are out of line and need to be punished, you gotta also add the prosecutors and the judges' names to it as well. So the next time some sawed-off racist right-winger tries to tell you they believe in being tough on crime and that it's all of these liberal prosecutors who refuse to be punishing any of the criminals, you make sure to point this one out to them. Because they know that when they say that, they're actually talking about black people. They're not talking about crime. They're talking about having a racial exclusion for people who are the right color. Now, in this instance, astonishingly, the feds actually got involved, and it didn't take tons of demonstrations for them to do it either. That's a miracle in and of itself. They charged Foxworth with 2 counts each of hate crime and using a firearm in a violent crime. He pleaded guilty in December of 2022, and in March of last year, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The judge said that he's also to serve 5 years of supervised release after he gets out of prison, and he has to pay $1,000 in restitution. That's a joke. But so is the entire injustice system under white supremacy. And you'll never see anyone on the right or the left fight for any sort of mandatory sentencing guidelines for these white supremacist terrorists. They won't be passing any equivalents of the '94 crime bill for hate crimes either, no Rockefeller law equivalent either. See, they don't want to criminalize the white supremacist lifestyle. That's why. The people who write these laws are every bit as racist as these little terrorists who they allow to run around. As black people, we have to take personal safety seriously. Because truth be told, under white supremacy, black personal safety is actually group safety. Or haven't you noticed that the black people who are the least likely to be murdered by the police, or least likely to have some random white supremacist trash run up on them, are the black people who are ready to defend themselves? There's a reason for that. White supremacists are cowards, especially the ones who wear badges. They look for soft targets. If they find someone who's ready to protect themselves from gun violence, then they hide or run away. Keep that in mind. You don't make yourself safer by being less threatening to white supremacy. You make yourself safer by showing white supremacists that you are the biggest threat to them. Look at what happened with this inbred in Georgia. He didn't even bother to stick around at the scene of his crimes because he didn't know if any of the people he was shooting at were carrying. So he fled. And personal safety is something that every black person should take seriously. Because as we all know, it's only a matter of time until the local police or sheriff's department decides to offer a creep like this a job. And that's this Friday's Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Charlie, Glenda Tice, Samara Morris, Mark Stroud, and DSC Bland. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.